You flinch before the sentence finishes. Not at the volume, at the direction. Because somewhere between your shoulder blades, in that knot of muscle that hasn't unclenched since you were 9 years old, your body already knows. When something breaks in that house, every pair of eyes swivels toward you. Your chest carries a specific kind of heaviness right now. Not the dense weight of grief. Something stranger. Hollow. Like a room that was gutted before you ever got the chance to furnish it. They called you the black sheep. The difficult one. But that label was never a description. It was a job title. And the strength everyone praises you for? It might be the most sophisticated prison ever built, because you constructed it yourself with blueprints someone else drew. Stay. Not because this will be comfortable, but because what comes next is the part about healing nobody tells you. The part that begins after you leave and realize you brought the entire building with you. Let's dismantle something first. The black sheep narrative is seductive, almost romantic. The lone wolf, the truth teller, the one who dared to be different in a family of sleepwalkers. And maybe there's a version of you that clung to that story like a rope in a flood, because it was the only frame that made the pain feel purposeful. If you were the rebel, at least you chose it. At least it was yours. But here's what that story quietly protects. The people who assigned the role. When a family calls you the black sheep, they're not describing your nature. They're describing their need. Every dysfunctional family system operates like a building with a fundamental design flaw. Cracks in the foundation that predate your birth. And rather than renovate, the system designates one member as the structural failure. You become the crack they can point to, so no one looks at the foundation itself. Family systems theorist Murray Bowen identified a pattern he called the identified patient. The family member who absorbs and expresses the dysfunction of the entire system so the system never has to seek its own treatment. You weren't sick, the house was. But they handed you the diagnosis and called it your personality. And the cruelest part? You believed them, not because you're naive, because when you're a child, the people who are supposed to be the architects of your safety are the same people drawing the blueprints of your blame. You don't have the cognitive capacity at 6 or 8 or 11 to say, this is a systems-level problem and I'm being triangulated to maintain homeostasis. You just think, in the quiet voice that lives beneath every louder thought, something is wrong with me. You're 11, maybe 12. The years blur together in houses like that. Not because you've forgotten, but because your body stored the years as one continuous season. Your sibling breaks something. A dish, a rule, a silence. And you watch, in real time, as the room rearranges itself. The attention slides off them and onto you like a searchlight finding an escaped prisoner. This is because of the environment you create. If you weren't always causing stress, things like this wouldn't happen. You don't cry. You've already learned that crying is evidence for the prosecution. You go still. You go small. And you learn, in that stillness, something that will take decades to unlearn. You are not a person in this family. You are a weather system. You are the reason it rains. That word, scapegoat, it comes from an ancient ritual. A goat was chosen, not for its own sins, for the community's. They laid their hands on it, transferred their collective guilt onto its back, and drove it into the wilderness to die carrying a weight it never generated. You were driven into the wilderness of yourself, carrying blame that was never yours to hold. But leaving the wilderness, that's where it gets complicated. And nobody prepares you for why. Here's what most conversations about the scapegoat miss. The structural truth that keeps you stuck even after you've done all the right things, read all the books, set all the boundaries. You weren't just abused. You were also neglected. And those two things happening simultaneously create a specific kind of psychological architecture that is structurally different from either one alone. The abuse was loud, visible. It gave you something to point at, something to name in therapy 15 years later. The criticism, the blame, the eruptions, the moments where your body became a target or your name became a weapon. Those left marks. Even if no one believed you, you knew they were real. But underneath the abuse, quieter and more corrosive, ran the neglect. The emotional vacancy. Like the way your ordinary needs, not your dramatic needs, your everyday human ones. The need to be asked how your day went. The need to be looked at when you weren't in trouble. The need to exist as a person rather than a problem. Those needs fell into a space that had no floor. Pause for a moment. Put your hand flat against your sternum. Feel that? That low-level hum beneath your palm. Not quite pain, not quite numbness. Something between. That's the architecture of neglect. It's a room inside you where someone was supposed to live. Someone warm. Someone who noticed you simply because you existed. And no one ever moved in. The room is still there. Still furnished with waiting. The landmark AC study. Adverse Childhood Experiences Research conducted by Dr. Vincent Felitti and Dr. Robert Anda uncovered something that rewrites the way we understand what happened in that house. They found that it isn't just the severity of a single trauma that predicts long-term impact on the body, the mind, the immune system, the capacity for connection. It's the accumulation, the layering, and critically, the combination of active abuse with emotional neglect creates a compounding effect that exceeds either one alone. The math isn't additive, it's multiplicative. Your nervous system wasn't just dodging blows, it was simultaneously starving for the very connection the blows made impossible. You were burning and freezing at the same time, and no one acknowledged either temperature. This is why your exhaustion is so specific. So architectural, and so different from what other people mean when they say tired. You were running two survival programs simultaneously. One scanning the room for attack, hypervigilant, cataloging micro-expressions, tracking vocal tones, mapping exit routes. The other searching constantly for warmth, for a face that softened when it looked at you, for hands that touched without agenda. Your brain allocated resources to both, the soldier and the orphan running side by side. And there was nothing left over. Nothing for play, nothing for rest. Nothing for the slow, unglamorous, essential process of becoming a person outside of survival. You're 26, maybe 30. You're at a dinner table, not the one you grew up at, of friends. Their mother turns to you with a warmth so casual it feels almost careless and asks, "What have you been reading lately?" Your throat closes, not because the question is hard, because it's safe. And your nervous system does not have a file for safe attention. You feel your hands go still under the table. You smile. The automatic one, the one that requires no internal involvement. You deflect. You answer in a way designed to take up as little space as possible, to be pleasant without being present, to give enough that no one notices you gave nothing. Later, in the car, your vision blurs. Not from sadness exactly, from a grief you can't locate, because you just felt, in your body, not your mind, what it's like to be asked about yourself by someone who isn't gathering ammunition. And the feeling was so foreign, so structurally incompatible with everything your nervous system was built to expect, and that your body processed warmth as threat. That throat-closing, eye-stinging dissonance. That's the intersection of abuse and neglect living in your tissue. Your body learned. Attention means danger. So love feels like a trap. And you pull away from the very thing you're starving for. Here's the part that's going to ache. Not because it's cruel, because it's precise. The abuse gave you a false identity, The neglect prevented you from building a real one. Let me say that again, and let it land lower than your thoughts. The constant blame, the role of family problem, the criticism that arrived like weather, that gave you something to be. Broken, difficult, too much, not enough. It was a terrible identity, a house with no windows and no heat, but it was a structure. And identity, even a painful one, not as something the human psyche will cling to rather than face the vertigo of having no self at all. But beneath that false identity, beneath the black sheep, the difficult child, the source of all problems, there was supposed to be a you, a real one. A person with preferences that weren't survival strategies, opinions that weren't defensive walls, a sense of humor that wasn't mortar between bricks designed to keep people at a manageable distance. That person wasn't destroyed. They were never allowed to be built. And here's the grief that no one prepares you for in healing. Not the grief for what happened, because people can sit with that. The grief for the person you never got to become. The version of you that would have existed if someone had watered the foundation instead of salting it. You don't mourn a memory. You mourn a possibility. And there is no casket for a life that was never lived. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, whose research on traumatic stress transformed how we understand the body's relationship to memory, found something that might explain why this hollowness follows you even into your safest rooms. Trauma doesn't just live in narrative memory. It lives in the body's architecture. Your muscles, your posture, your reflexes, the depth or shallowness of your breath, the speed at which your eyes scan a new environment. These aren't personality traits. They are construction remnants from a building that no longer stands. But your body doesn't know that yet. It's still holding up walls that were demolished years ago. You carry the architecture of that house in your spine. Sad, and here's the duality that makes healing so disorienting. The thing you need to hold with both hands. The same system that hollowed you out also sharpened you beyond what most people will ever develop. The hypervigilance that exhausts you, it made you the person who notices when someone at a table goes quiet. Not loud quiet, but a specific shade of quiet that means something has gone wrong inside them. The emotional radar that keeps you awake at 3 a.m.? It's the same instrument that makes you the friend people call from the bathroom floor, because you can feel the frequency of pain before they've found the words. Research on individuals with elevated adverse childhood experience scores has revealed something that is both remarkable and deeply uncomfortable. Many show heightened empathy, emotional intelligence, and interpersonal attunement compared to those with fewer adverse experiences. Not because suffering is inherently redemptive, not because pain is a gift, but because your nervous system, in its desperate brilliance, built capacities that most people never need to develop. You learn to read the emotional weather of a room the way a sailor reads the sky, because your survival depended on it. And now that skill, that bone-deep, muscle-level attunement to the emotional frequencies around you, that's yours. Not the family's, yours. But, and you need to hear this part without armoring up, you never got to rest. You never got to be ordinary. Never got to be the kid who didn't notice the tension at dinner. Never got to be charmingly oblivious. You never got to be bad at reading people because you never had the luxury of not needing to. You never got to be soft without someone filing it away for later use. Here's the structural secret of the scapegoat system. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it will rearrange something fundamental in how you understand your own story. The family didn't target you because you were the weakest member. They targeted you because you were the one most likely to see the truth. The dysfunctional family system requires consensus. It's a building held together not by love, but by agreement. The agreement that the foundation is fine, the walls are straight, the roof isn't leaking. Don't look down. Don't look up. Just maintain the structure. And you looked. Not out of rebellion. Not because you wanted to cause trouble. You looked because you were built with eyes that couldn't stop seeing. Maybe it was a parent's addiction that everyone called stress. Maybe it was a marriage held together by the children's compliance and everyone called it stability. Maybe it was rage that everyone called discipline. You saw the true name of the thing, and you couldn't unfocus your vision fast enough. That refusal to participate in the collective blindness is what made you dangerous to the system. Not your behavior, your perception. So the system didn't just punish you, it discredited your entire way of seeing. You're too sensitive. You're making things up. You always have to create drama. No one else has a problem. Why do you? Every one of those phrases was a structural reinforcement. A board nailed across the window you kept trying to open. And over time, over years, over thousands of repetitions delivered in voices you were biologically wired to trust, you began to believe them. Not in your mind, necessarily. In your body. In the place where instinct lives. You began to distrust the very perception that was your greatest instrument. You're in a relationship, a reasonably good one, and something shifts. A tone, a pattern, a withdrawal so subtle it wouldn't register on anyone else's radar. Your body picks it up like a seismograph detecting a tremor 300 miles away. Something is wrong. You know it the way you know your own name. And instead of trusting that signal, that finely calibrated alarm system forged in the most volatile conditions imaginable, the one that has never once been wrong, you reach for the kill switch. I'm overreacting. I'm being the difficult one again. I'm seeing problems that aren't there. You gaslight yourself, fluently, automatically. Not because you're weak, because the family system installed a kill switch on your intuition, and you still reach for it every time the alarm goes off. They couldn't destroy your perception, so they taught you to do it yourself. Cheaper, more efficient, self-sustaining. That kill switch. That's the thing you're actually healing from. Not just the abuse, not just the neglect. The systematic dismantling of your capacity to trust what you know. And this is why just leaving is not enough. You can leave the house. You can go no contact. You can relocate across the country, change your number, build what looks from the outside like an entirely different life. But if the operating system is still running, if you're still overriding your own alarm, still making yourself small in rooms that aren't dangerous, still scanning for the role you're supposed to perform before you've felt what you actually feel, then you haven't left. You've just rebuilt the same structure in a different zip code. The part of you that wants to collapse right now, the part that's exhausted from performing the one who made it out, that's not weakness. That's the most architecturally honest part of you. The part that knows you cannot renovate a building while you're still holding up the ceiling. So how do you put it down? Not by becoming someone new. That's the trap. The belief that healing means building another identity on top of the rubble. Another performance. Another load-bearing wall. Another structure someone else designed. The actual work is quieter and stranger than that. It's learning to stand in a room with no walls and discovering you don't collapse. That you have your own bones. That you are always more than the structure that contained you. Here's what that looks like. Not poetically, practically. First, you learn to tolerate the vacancy, the hollowness where a self was supposed to develop. You stop trying to fill it with productivity or caretaking or the gravitational pull of someone else's needs. You sit in the empty room. You let it be empty. And slowly, not in a weekend workshop, not in a single cathartic cry, but over months of small, undramatic moments, you begin to notice what you actually want, not what's safe, not what's expected, not what earns love. what you want. It might be something absurdly small, a color you're drawn to, a food you enjoy because it tastes good, and not because it's efficient, a kind of music that makes your chest open rather than brace. These are not small things. These are the first pieces of furniture in a room that has been empty your entire life. Second, you learn to let your alarm system exist without obeying it automatically. Not silence it. You've spent decades silencing it, and the suppression only made the alarms louder and more erratic. Instead, you build a new relationship with it. I hear you. You're scanning for danger. That made sense when we lived in that house. We don't live there anymore. I hear you, and we're safe right now. This isn't a technique. It's an ongoing conversation with the part of you that was forged in fire and hasn't received the message that the war ended. Doctor, Stephen Porges' research on polyvagal theory offers something here that might loosen the knot between your shoulder blades. Your nervous system contains a social engagement pathway, a neural circuit designed specifically for connection, co-regulation, safety, and rest. In environments of chronic threat, this circuit goes offline. Not because it's damaged, because your body, in its brutal efficiency, prioritized the survival circuits over the connection circuits. It's brilliant engineering. And this is the part I need you to hear. It's reversible. The neural pathways for safety and connection are dormant, not dead. Like electrical wiring in a house that was abandoned, the infrastructure is intact. Someone just needs to flip the breakers back on. And that someone is you. But gently, through repeated, small, boring experiences of safety that your body, not your mind, registers as real. A friend who shows up consistently. A room where no one monitors your tone. 5 minutes of stillness where nothing bad happens. These aren't luxuries. They're rehabilitation for a nervous system that forgot what peace feels like. Third, and this will feel the most foreign, like speaking a language you were forbidden to learn. You let people see you without a role. Not as the strong one. Not as the healer. Not as the survivor. Not as the scapegoat turned phoenix. Just you. Undefined. In process. Without a function to justify your presence in the room. This will feel like standing without skin in a windstorm. Your body will insist it's dangerous, because in the family system, being undefined meant being unprotected. You needed a role to earn your square footage. Without one, you were nothing. Or worse, you were a target without a shield. But in chosen family, in the relationships you build with the slow, deliberate care of someone who knows exactly what a bad blueprint looks like, being undefined is not vulnerability. It's the first honest foundation you've ever stood on. Researchers Dr. Richard Tedeschi and Dr. Lawrence Calhoun spent decades studying what they called post-traumatic growth, the documented phenomenon where individuals who endure significant adversity don't merely return to their previous baseline. They develop capacities they didn't possess before, deeper, more intentional relationships, a restructured sense of what matters, an appreciation for being alive that isn't naive optimism, but earned, scarred, open-eyed gratitude. Not everyone who suffers grows. This isn't a platitude. It's a possibility. One that requires not just time, but deliberate engagement with the wound. Intentional reconstruction, not just demolition. And you, by being here, by staying through the parts that hurt, by refusing to let the family's blueprint be the final architectural plan of your life, you are already in the process of drawing something new. Let me bring you back to the flinch, the one from the beginning, the way your body braces before the words even land. Not because you're fragile, but because you mapped the trajectory of every sentence in that house before it reached you. That flinch is not damage. It's the reflex of someone who learned to read the architecture of a room before they could read a book. Put your hand on your chest now. Feel the heat of your own palm. Feel the heartbeat under it. The one that endured every silent treatment, every tribunal disguised as dinner, every night you inventoried your own flaws in the dark. That heartbeat is the only foundation you ever needed. And it was there the whole time. Beneath the role, beneath the blame, beneath the building they told you was your fault. If something shifted just now, not in your thoughts, in your sternum, type "I see" in the comments. For the part of you whose vision was treated as a crime. And if someone came to mind while you listened, someone who carries this load-bearing quiet that everyone mistakes for strength, send this to them. You don't need a reason. They'll know why you sent it. The house was never yours to hold up. And the next thing you build, you get to choose the blueprints. And if you want to understand what comes next, what happens when the building is down and you're standing in the open for the first time, I made something for that too. It's here when you're ready.